The bitter wind howled across the frozen landscape as James watched his survey ship sink deeper into the snow. Smoke rose from the damaged engine, turning into ice crystals almost instantly in the minus 70 degrees Celsius air. He checked his suit's temperature display again and felt his heart sink. The emergency heating system was failing. "Just perfect," he muttered, watching his breath freeze inside his helmet. Earth Command had warned him about this sector, but no one expected an ice planet to have magnetic storms strong enough to disable a military-grade ship. The crash had damaged most of his equipment, including the emergency beacon that would have brought help. James trudged through the knee-deep snow, scanning the horizon for any sign of shelter. His suit could only keep him alive for 12 more hours at most. The planet's twin suns were already setting, painting the ice fields in shades of purple and deep blue. Night temperatures would drop even lower, turning the beautiful landscape into a death trap. He checked his handheld scanner. It was one of the few devices still working, though the screen flickered constantly. The readings made no sense. There were energy signatures nearby, but they kept moving and changing intensity. James blamed it on the magnetic storms. As darkness began to fall, he spotted a rock formation that might offer some protection from the wind. It wasn't much, but it was better than freezing in the open. He started walking faster, ignoring the warning lights in his helmet showing dangerous temperature drops in his suit's systems. The rock formation turned out to be an ice cave. James activated his light beam and carefully stepped inside. The walls gleamed like polished mirrors, reflecting his light in all directions. He moved deeper into the cave, hoping to find a spot where he could set up his emergency shelter. A sound made him freeze. Something was moving in the darkness ahead. James switched off his light and pressed himself against the ice wall. His training kicked in. Stay still, assess the situation, plan an escape route. But the cold was making it hard to think clearly. His fingers were getting numb even inside the heated gloves. The sound came again, closer this time. It wasn't the wind or falling ice. It was too regular, too deliberate. Footsteps. His scanner began beeping urgently. The moving energy signature he detected earlier was now right in front of him. Before he could react, a tall figure stepped into view. James's jaw dropped. Standing before him was clearly an alien, but unlike any species humanity had encountered before. It stood at least 7 feet tall, with silvery blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Its muscular form was covered in what looked like crystalline armor that grew naturally from its body. The alien's eyes glowed with an inner light, focusing on James with obvious intelligence. It carried no visible weapons, but its powerful build made it clear it didn't need any. To his surprise, the alien didn't seem shocked to see him. Instead, it tilted its head and studied him with what looked like concern. James noticed something else. The air around the creature seemed to waver, like heat rising from hot pavement. He took a step back, but his legs gave way. The cold was winning. His suit's heating system had finally failed completely. As he fell to his knees, the last thing he saw was the alien moving toward him with surprising speed. James's last conscious thought was that this was a strange way for humanity's first contact with a new species to happen. Him freezing to death in an ice cave while being watched by a creature that seemed to radiate heat. The alien warrior, Cree, caught the human before he hit the ground. She could feel the dangerous cold radiating from his suit. Her people had been watching humans for years, learning about them from a distance. She knew their bodies couldn't survive these temperatures. Looking down at the unconscious human, Cree made a decision that would change both their species forever. She activated her body's heat generation to maximum and lifted James easily in her arms. Her people's laws about contact with other species were clear, but so were her warriors' instincts about protecting those in need. As she carried him through the storm, she had no way of knowing that this rescue would become the stuff of legend in years to come. Cree's personal shelter was carved into the side of a mountain, hidden from prying eyes by sheets of translucent ice. As she carried the unconscious human inside, Her biosensors indicated his core temperature was dangerously low. Even with her enhanced body heat warming him through his suit, his condition was critical. She placed him carefully on the thermal pad in her sleeping chamber. The human's face was pale behind his helmet's faceplate, his lips turning an alarming shade of blue. Cree knew enough about human physiology to recognize these as dangerous signs. "Computer, increase chamber temperature to maximum," she commanded. The shelter's heating systems hummed to life, but she knew it wouldn't be enough. Humans needed more warmth than her kind typically maintained in their living spaces. Cree began removing the human's damaged suit, her crystalline fingers working carefully to avoid causing more harm. Each piece she removed revealed more evidence of how badly the cold had affected him. His strange, soft skin was like ice to touch. She accessed her neural database, reviewing everything her people had gathered about human biology. Their species was fascinating. Warm-blooded creatures who had somehow managed to spread across the galaxy despite being so vulnerable to environmental extremes. A weak groan escaped James's lips. His eyes fluttered open briefly, then closed again. Cree's biosensors showed his heartbeat becoming erratic. She had to act fast. The solution was obvious, but it went against every protocol her people had established regarding other species. Direct physical contact with aliens was strictly forbidden. The risks of cultural contamination, biological incompatibility, or diplomatic incidents were too high. But as she watched James shiver violently, Cree made her choice. She was a warrior of the Frost Walkers, and warriors protected those in need. Protocol could wait. She activated her body's heat generation to its highest setting. Her crystalline armor retracted, revealing the heat-generating scales beneath. The air around her shimmered as her body temperature rose far above its normal level. "If you can hear me, human," she said, knowing he probably couldn't understand, "I apologize for what I must do. But you will sleep beside me, or you will die from the cold." Cree lay down next to James, wrapping her larger form around his smaller one. Her people's ability to generate and control heat had evolved over millions of years on this frozen world. Now she was using it to save a creature from another star system. The effect was immediate. Color began returning to James's face, and his breathing became more regular. His body instinctively pressed closer to the source of warmth, making Cree tense briefly before forcing herself to relax. As she held him, Cree studied his features with curiosity. Humans were so different from her people, small, soft, with no natural armor or heat generation abilities. Yet they had built starships and colonies, fought wars and made peace, created art and music that had caught the attention of her people's cultural observers. Hours passed. Cree maintained her elevated temperature, watching as James's vital signs slowly stabilized. She knew that when he woke up, there would be confusion, possibly fear. The diplomatic consequences of this situation could be severe. But as a warrior, she understood that sometimes the right choice wasn't the easy one. Her people had been debating whether to make official contact with humans for years. Now that choice had been made for them, in this small shelter on a frozen world. James stirred in his sleep, mumbling words she couldn't understand. His hand unconsciously gripped her arm, seeking more warmth. Cree found herself fascinated by the gesture, so trusting, even in unconsciousness. She activated her shelter's long-range communicator, knowing she needed to report this situation to her superiors. But not yet. For now, her duty was clear: keep this strange, fragile creature alive through the long night. As the storm raged outside, Cree settled in for her vigil, generating enough heat for them both. She had no way of knowing that this night would become a turning point in the history of both their species. For now, she was simply a warrior, doing what warriors had always done, protecting those who needed protection. James woke up feeling warm, which made no sense given his last memory of freezing in an ice cave. His eyes opened slowly, then widened in shock. He was lying next to the alien he'd seen before passing out, and its body was radiating heat like a furnace. "Please remain calm," the alien said in perfect English, surprising him further. You were near death from cold. I had to share body heat to save you." James tried to move away, but his muscles wouldn't cooperate. He was wrapped in some kind of thermal blanket, with the alien's larger form curved protectively around him. "I am Cree, a warrior of the Frost Walkers," she continued, maintaining her position, but giving him a little more space. "Your ship crashed during one of our magnetic storms." You speak English," James managed to say, his voice hoarse. "And you've been watching me." "We have been watching all humans," Cree admitted. "For several years now. Your species is interesting to us." James tried to process this information. He was lying in what appeared to be an alien shelter, being kept alive by the body heat of a creature that looked like a cross between a warrior and an ice sculpture. "Why help me?" he asked. "If you've been watching us secretly, why reveal yourselves now?" Kree's crystalline features shifted in what might have been a frown. "I am a warrior. Warriors protect." The choice was simple: break protocol or watch you die. A violent shiver ran through James's body, and Cree immediately moved closer, her heat output increasing. He found himself instinctively leaning into the warmth, despite his reservations. "Your body temperature is still below safe levels," she explained. "The storm outside has intensified. Until it passes, you must stay close to me." "And your people are okay with this?" James asked, gesturing to their unusual situation. "They do not know yet," Cree admitted. "I will face consequences for breaking contact protocols. But I do not regret my choice." James studied her face, trying to read the alien expressions. Despite her intimidating appearance, there was something almost gentle in the way she was caring for him. "Your people generate heat naturally?" he asked, his scientific curiosity awakening. "Is that an evolutionary adaptation to this environment?" "Yes." Cree seemed pleased by his interest. "We can control our body temperature at will. It is how we survived on this world while developing our civilization." A loud boom shook the shelter, making James jump. Kree's arm instinctively tightened around him. "Magnetic storm," she explained. "They can last for days. Your rescue will have to wait until it passes." "Days." James tried to sit up, but dizziness forced him back down. "Earth Command will think I'm dead." "They will not search in this storm anyway," Cree reasoned. "No ship can safely navigate these conditions. You are safer here." James knew she was right, but the situation felt surreal. Here he was, discussing survival logistics with an alien while essentially cuddling with her for warmth. "Your culture," he said carefully, "it values protecting others." "It is our highest law," Cree confirmed, "even above the protocols about contact with other species." "Then maybe," James suggested, "this isn't such a diplomatic disaster. It could be an opportunity." Kree's crystalline features shifted again, this time in what appeared to be a smile. "Perhaps. But for now, focus on recovering. Politics can wait until you are stronger." Another boom rattled the shelter, and the temperature dropped noticeably. Cree adjusted her heat output automatically, and James found himself grateful for her presence. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for saving my life." "Sleep," she replied simply. "We will talk more when you are stronger." As James drifted back to sleep, warm and safe despite being light years from home, he wondered how this strange encounter would change things between their species. One thing was certain: life in this part of the galaxy was about to become much more interesting. Outside, the magnetic storm raged on, but inside the shelter, an unlikely partnership was forming, one that would soon reshape the relationship between two very different civilizations. As the magnetic storm continued outside, James and Cree found themselves sharing stories about their respective worlds. The human sat wrapped in thermal blankets while the Frostwalker maintained a comfortable distance that still allowed her heat to reach him. "So your entire civilization evolved around heat manipulation?" James asked, fascinated by a holographic display Cree had activated showing her home city. The structures were massive crystalline formations, glowing with internal heat. Yes, we learned to channel our body heat into our surroundings, Cree explained, touching the wall of the shelter. The ice briefly turned liquid before reforming into a different pattern. It allows us to shape our environment without destroying it. That's why we never detected your cities from orbit, James realized. They look like natural formations. Cree nodded, her crystalline features catching the light. We have watched your ships pass by many times. Your exploration methods are interesting, very direct. Unlike your people's approach of secret observation, James couldn't help but smile. The initial awkwardness of their situation had faded into genuine curiosity about each other's cultures. We needed to understand you first, Cree defended, but her tone was light. Your species spreads across space so quickly, adapting to new environments through technology rather than evolution. It's fascinating. A particularly strong gust of wind made the shelter vibrate. James instinctively moved closer to Cree, who increased her heat output without comment. What made your people decide to watch humans specifically? He asked, trying to distract himself from their forced proximity. Cree was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. Your resilience. We observed many species, but humans showed remarkable ability to survive despite your physical limitations. You remind us of ourselves, in a way. Really? We seem pretty different to me. James gestured between them, his soft human form and her crystalline warrior body. Not in the ways that matter, Cree replied. Your determination, your ability to adapt, your protection of others. These are values we share. James thought about this. Is that why you saved me? Because you saw those qualities in humans. I saved you because it was right, Cree said simply. But yes, knowing about humans made the decision easier. We have been considering making official contact for some time. And now you've been forced into it by a crashed ship and a freezing human. James chuckled. Not exactly the diplomatic first contact either of our species probably imagined. Cree's features shifted in what James now recognized as amusement. Sometimes the best paths are not the planned ones. She stood up and walked to a console, checking some readings. The storm will last at least another day. Are you hungry? Our food might not be compatible with your biology, but I have studied human nutritional needs. From a storage unit, she produced something that looked like a ration bar. We created these while considering future contact scenarios. They should be safe for you. James accepted the bar, touched by the level of preparation her people had put into potential human contact. As he ate, he noticed Cree watching him with scientific interest. What will happen when the storm ends? He asked finally, voicing the concern that had been growing in his mind. My superiors will have to be informed, Cree said. But this situation might work in favor of both our species. It proves we can cooperate, that we can help each other survive. Even if that means breaking a few protocols. James raised an eyebrow. Even then, Cree agreed, though perhaps we should leave out the details about sharing body heat when we write the official report. They both laughed, the sound echoing strangely in the ice shelter. It was a moment of genuine connection between two very different beings who had found common ground in an unexpected situation. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside, the ice between two civilizations was slowly melting away. Neither James nor Cree knew exactly what would happen next, but they both understood that something important had started here, something that went beyond survival or diplomatic relations. It was the beginning of understanding between two species who had more in common than either had initially believed. When the storm finally cleared, 3 Frost Walker ships appeared in the sky above the shelter. They landed in a triangle formation, their crystalline hulls glowing with internal heat. James watched through the shelter's transparent walls as 6 warriors, each as impressive as Cree, emerged. My commander is among them, Cree said, standing protectively close to James. Whatever happens, let me speak first. The shelter's door crystallized open, and the warriors entered. Their leader, taller than the others and covered in more elaborate crystal formations, stepped forward. Warrior Kree. The commander's voice was deep and resonating. Explain this breach of protocol. Kree straightened to her full height but didn't move away from James. Commander Vale, I found this human near death after a ship crash. Our primary law of protection required me to act. Vale's glowing eyes shifted to James, who fought the urge to step back. And this sharing of our shelter, our heat-giving ability, was that also necessary? It was the only way to keep him alive. Kree responded firmly. I accept any punishment for breaking protocol, but I stand by my decision. To everyone's surprise, Vale let out a sound that might have been a laugh. Punishment. You misunderstand, Warrior Kree. Your actions have given us an opportunity we've been seeking for years. The tension in the room shifted. The other warriors relaxed their stance, and James could have sworn some of them looked excited. Sir, Kree sounded confused. We've been deadlocked for years about how to approach humans, Vale explained. Some feared they would react with hostility to our presence. Others worried about cultural contamination. But you've proven something important. We can interact successfully. James stepped forward. Your people have been preparing for contact with humans. Vale nodded. We've studied your species extensively. Your adaptability, your resilience. These qualities mirror our own. But we needed proof that direct interaction was possible. And now you have it, Kree realized. Because a human and a frost walker survived together. More than survived, Vale corrected. You've shown that our species can cooperate, can help each other. This incident will become a cornerstone of our diplomatic relations. One of the other warriors stepped forward with what looked like a communication device. Earth Command has been searching for their missing scout. Should we contact them now? Vale looked at James. Would you do us the honor of making first official contact? Your experience here could help ease any fears your people might have. James glanced at Kree, who gave him an encouraging nod. I would be honored. Though maybe we should leave out certain details about survival methods. The warriors all made that strange laughing sound again. Vale's crystalline features shifted into what James now recognized as a smile. Indeed, some details can remain between warriors. Vale turned to Kree. You will be appointed as our first official liaison with humans. Your experience with this situation makes you uniquely qualified. Kree's surprise was visible. Thank you, Commander. I will serve with honor. As the warriors set up their communication equipment, James moved closer to Kree. Looks like breaking protocol worked out pretty well. Sometimes the best paths are the unexpected ones, she replied, echoing their earlier conversation. Though I admit, I did not expect to become a diplomatic liaison when I found you in that cave. Life's full of surprises, James grinned. One day you're freezing to death. The next you're helping establish first contact between species. The communication device hummed to life, ready to transmit to Earth Command. Before stepping forward to use it, James looked at Kree one more time. Thank you, he said quietly, for taking a chance on a freezing human. Kree's heat signature flared briefly. What James had learned was their equivalent of emotional expression. Thank you for trusting a strange alien who demanded you sleep beside her. Together, they turned to face the communication device, ready to begin the next chapter in their species' shared history. What had started as a survival situation was about to become something much bigger, the beginning of a new era of cooperation between humans and frost walkers. 3 months after the crash, the first joint human-frost walker research station stood completed on the ice planet. James watched from an observation deck as teams from both species worked together, studying the unique magnetic storms that had changed his life. Your people adapt quickly, Kree said, joining him at the window. As the official liaison, she spent most of her time helping both species understand each other. We had good motivation, James replied. Your heat manipulation technology alone has revolutionized our cold weather colonies, and having frost walker warriors helping protect human settlements. That's changed everything. Below them, a human scientist worked alongside a frost walker, using their combined abilities to study ice core samples. The human handled the delicate equipment while the warrior used heat control to preserve the samples perfectly. "It's not just technology and protection," Cree observed. "Our cultures are blending in ways nobody expected." She was right. In the short time since first contact, humans had embraced frost walker art, particularly their ice sculptures brought to life with internal heat. Meanwhile, frost warriors had become fascinated by human music, discovering that their heat-based abilities could create incredible sound patterns in ice. "Remember how worried everyone was about cultural contamination?" James laughed. "Now we got human children learning heat control meditation and frostwalker warriors watching human sports tournaments." A group of young frost warriors passed by, discussing the latest Earth soccer match with intense interest. They nodded respectfully to Cree and James, the now famous pair whose survival story had started it all. "The Council of Warriors was concerned at first," Cree admitted. "They feared too much human influence would soften our warrior culture. Instead, we found new ways to be warriors." She gestured to a training area where frost warriors were teaching human emergency teams how to survive extreme cold. The humans, in turn, were sharing their experience with rapid response and adaptable tactics. "Our peoples complement each other," James noted. "Your strength and our adaptability. Your heat control and our technology. Even our different approaches to problems work better together." A slight shimmer in the air around Cree showed her emotional response, something she no longer tried to hide around James. Their close friendship had become a symbol of successful human frost walker relations. "The exchange program starts next month," she reminded him. "Human scientists coming to live here, while young warriors visit Earth. Are you nervous about being one of the supervisors?" "A little," James admitted. "But after surviving that first night with you, everything else seems manageable." Their conversation was interrupted by an alert. A magnetic storm was approaching, smaller than the one that had crashed James's ship, but still significant. "Want to go watch it?" Cree asked, knowing how James had developed a fascination with the storms. "The new observation dome is ready." They headed to the dome, a marvel of combined human and frostwalker engineering. Other observers were already there, scientists and warriors alike, eager to study the phenomenon. As the storm's colors painted the sky, James reflected on how much had changed. The ice planet that had nearly killed him was now home to one of the most successful interspecies collaborations in human history, planning to crash any more ships. Cree teased, her heat signature creating comfortable warmth around them as they watched the storm. "I think one life-changing crash is enough," James replied. "Though I have to admit, it worked out pretty well." Around them, humans and frost warriors chatted comfortably, sharing observations and jokes. The initial fear and suspicion between their species had melted away faster than anyone expected, replaced by genuine friendship and respect. "We make a good team," Cree said softly, watching their peoples work together. "All of us." James nodded, remembering that first desperate night when an alien warrior had broken all her protocols to save his life. That simple act of compassion had opened the door to something extraordinary. The magnetic storm danced across the sky, its light reflecting off the crystalline structures of the research station. Inside, two very different species had found common ground, proving that sometimes the coldest places could warm the heart in unexpected ways. 1 year after the crash that changed everything, the ice planet hosted a historic ceremony. Representatives from Earth and the Frostwalker Council gathered to inaugurate the first permanent joint colony, named New Dawn. James stood on the ceremonial platform beside Cree, both of them now wearing special badges marking them as the colony's co-leaders. The assembled crowd included hundreds of humans and frost warriors, all brought together by their shared vision of the future. "A year ago," James began his speech, "I crashed on this planet thinking I would die in the cold. Instead, I found warmth in the most unexpected place, from a warrior who chose compassion over protocol. The crowd murmured appreciatively. Their story had become legend among both species, taught to children as an example of how trust and understanding could bridge any difference. Today, Cree continued, her crystalline form gleaming in the light of the twin suns, we establish more than a colony. We create a home where both our peoples can learn from each other, grow together, and face the challenges of the galaxy as one. The new colony stretched out before them, a beautiful blend of human and Frostwalker architecture. Crystal spires housed advanced Earth technology, while human-style buildings were enhanced with heat control systems. Streets were designed to accommodate both species comfortably, with special areas where children from both worlds could play together safely. Commander Vale stepped forward, his elaborate crystal armor reflecting the colors of the aurora above. 1 year ago, we feared contact with humans would weaken our warrior culture. Instead, it has made us stronger. We have learned new ways to be warriors, not just in combat, but in exploration, protection, and understanding. The Earth Ambassador nodded in agreement, and humans have learned that true strength comes in many forms. The Frostwalkers have taught us patience, resilience, and the power of inner heat, both literal and metaphorical. As if on cue, a group of human children demonstrated their newly learned heat-sensing abilities, guided by Frostwalker mentors. Meanwhile, young warriors showed off their mastery of human technology, seamlessly integrating it with their natural abilities. The galaxy is changing, James continued, looking out at the gathered faces. New challenges and threats emerge every day. But together, our peoples are stronger than ever. Cree raised her hand, activating her heat powers. The ice beneath the platform began to glow, creating a beautiful pattern that spread throughout the colony. Human technicians activated their systems in response, creating a harmonic light show that demonstrated the perfect blend of both technologies. From this day forward, Cree announced, New Dawn stands as proof that the coldest beginnings can lead to the warmest friendships. That survival can lead to understanding. That two different species can become one community. The ceremony concluded with a traditional exchange. Humans presented the Frost Warriors with advanced shielding technology, while the warriors shared new developments in heat control applications. But more meaningful were the smaller exchanges. Children swapping toys, scientists sharing notes, warriors and soldiers trading stories. Later, as the celebration continued, James and Cree found a quiet moment in the observation dome they'd first visited months ago. Did you ever imagine this? James asked, watching humans and frost warriors mingling below. That night when you found me freezing in that cave. Cree's heat signature pulsed gently, her equivalent of a thoughtful smile. I imagined saving a life. Instead, we helped save 2 civilizations from the cold of isolation. A magnetic storm was building on the horizon, but now it was a sight of beauty rather than fear. The combined technologies of both species made such storms harmless, even beneficial for power generation. To think, James mused, all this happened because you decided to break protocol and share your warmth with a freezing human. And because that human was stubborn enough to survive. Cree added, some things don't change. They watched as the storm's lights danced across the colony. Their colony, a place where sleep beside me or die from the cold, had transformed from a desperate command into a symbol of unity between species. Below them, New Dawn glowed with combined human and Frostwalker energy, a beacon of hope in the galaxy. It stood as living proof that sometimes the greatest warmth could be found in the coldest places, and that the best stories often began with one simple act of compassion.